All right, let's talk about something really cool. We're going to dive into a new way to figure out your exact location, and get this, it doesn't use satellites. It just uses a regular old video. So, you know that feeling, right? You're following your map app, it proudly announces you have arrived, but you're squinting around because you're actually like 100 feet from where you need to be. It's such a common, frustrating thing. Now, for you and me, that's just an annoyance. But what if you're not the one driving? Think about a self-driving car. For that car, being off by just a couple of feet isn't an inconvenience. It could be a total disaster. Close enough is absolutely not good enough.
So what's the deal? Why do our current systems struggle? Well, for one, good old GPS has a tough time in big cities. Tall buildings block the satellite signals. They call it the urban canyon effect. And then there are other systems like SLAM, that's simultaneous localization and mapping, and they can get really confused by things like changing shadows, a sudden rainstorm, or even just a street where all the buildings kind of look the same.
Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. A new system called Vid2Pos is stepping onto the scene, and honestly, the best way to think about it is like a digital detective. It doesn't bother looking up at the sky for satellites. No, it looks right at the world around it, using a video to hunt for clues and crack the case of its exact location. So how exactly does this digital Sherlock Holmes do its thing? Well, the very first step is taking its primary piece of evidence, the video, and turning it into a solid clue. We're talking about creating a unique 3D digital fingerprint of that specific spot.
You can see the whole workflow right here. It really boils down to a three-step process. First, you've got to generate that 3D clue from the video. Second, you need a master map of the area to compare it to. And finally, step 3 is the big one, matching that clue to the map to find the exact spot.
All right, let's zoom in on that first step. The system starts by grabbing individual frames from the video. It uses a really clever AI technique called structure from motion to figure out where the camera was for each and every frame. Then it takes all that information and feeds it into another process. This one's called 3D Gaussian Splatting to build a really dense 3D model of the scene. The result is what's known as a point cloud. But here's the thing, the first version isn't exactly pretty. This initial point cloud is, well, it's messy. It's full of junk data, background noise, just random floaty points. It's exactly like finding a smudged fingerprint at a crime scene. You know there's a clue there, but it's just too messy to be useful.
So what's the key? You guessed it. You've got to clean it up. It's absolutely crucial to get rid of all that digital grime and clutter to see the real, clear pattern underneath.
And how do they do that? Well, there's a process for it called statistical outlier removal. It's a fancy way of saying the system looks at all the points in that 3D model, figures out which ones are just noise, and poof, gets rid of them. What you're left with is a super clean, way more accurate 3D clue. That smudged fingerprint, it's now perfectly crisp and ready for analysis. Okay, so our detective has a nice, clean clue. Awesome. But a clue is useless without something to compare it to, right? You need your lineup of suspects. That's where the second big stage comes in, creating what's basically a digital twin of the entire area.
Now, this master map isn't just made from some other video. Oh no. This is the high-tech stuff. It's created using LiDAR. You can think of it like radar, but with lasers. It scans the entire environment and creates this incredibly detailed and super accurate 3D map of, well, everything. The buildings, the curbs, the trees. This is what we call the ground truth.
But here's the challenge. A LiDAR scan of a whole city is absolutely massive. It's way too much data to search through all at once, so the system does something really smart. It chops up that giant map into a grid of smaller, bite-sized pieces they call blocks. Think of it like organizing a giant library into individual, easy-to-search folders in a filing cabinet. And now, it's time for the grand finale, the moment of truth. We've got our clean 3D clue from the video. We've got our perfectly organized digital filing cabinet full of map blocks. It's time to put them together and find the perfect match. The logic is actually pretty simple when you think about it. The Vid2Pos system takes that 3D clue it made from the video and starts trying to fit it against each block from the master map, almost like a puzzle piece. It's going block by block by block, looking for the one that just clicks.
So how does it know when it clicks? Well, for every block it tries, it calculates a similarity score. It uses this special metric to look at all the important details, the shape of the buildings, the angle of the walls, even the color. And it figures out just how well the video clue and the map block line up.
And boom! Take a look at the results from the test. You can see it clear as day. One block just shoots way above the rest. See that big spike? That's block 56, with a score of 0.54. That's the system screaming, "I've found it! This is the spot! Case closed!"
Okay, that's really impressive, but let's pull back for a second. What does all this actually mean for the future of how we get around? What's next for this kind of technology?
I think the researchers behind this summed it up perfectly. They found that Vid2Pos really does improve how accurately and reliably a system can find itself, especially in those tough city environments where GPS and other things just give up. In other words, it's more accurate and it's tougher.
But let's be real, it's not a magic wand just yet. There's still some big challenges. For one, you need really high-quality video and super detailed LiDAR scans for it to work well. It can also get confused by a lot of moving objects, cars, buses, crowds of people. Plus, that whole matching process takes a ton in computer power. It really prefers a world that stays pretty much the same.
And that kind of leaves us with this one big final thought to chew on. We started this whole thing talking about a self-driving car. So, if a car can use its cameras to know exactly where it is, down to the centimeter, what else can it see? What else can it understand about the world around it? And that question, well, that's what's going to fuel the next big leap in this field.